Hello everyone, this is the Nomad here, and I'm doing my first chapter reaction review and thoughts of the future of One Piece. I am new to this, but what the hell, you get better with time. In this chapter, we'll start with the cover page story where Pound reveals to the twins that he is their father. I hope this story ends so we can move on to another character like Crocodile or even Katakuri. The next few panels, we see our Page 1 and Ulti recovering from the brief skirmish they had with Luffy and Yamato. I enjoy their interactions because it seems while Page 1 humbly accepts his beating, Ulti's in denial and is pissed. She reminds me of that person in school who got spanked in a fight and swears up and down it was a fluke and we all know otherwise. The father's meanwhile reaction to this is hilarious because they're like, we don't get paid enough for this shit. So they just like whatever. After their story's done, we move on down to the fight between Yamato and Luffy now. To me, this was interesting because earlier in the chapter, well, not in this chapter, but the last chapter, I digress, Yamato was like thrilled to see Luffy. Now they're duking it out. It is rather one sided because, to my observation at least, Luffy's in a hurry and wants to meet up with everyone else, while Yamato just wants to explain the position to Luffy, and man, that didn't go well. What I found cool was Luffy's use of advanced armament hockey techniques. Like he'll probably explore more of this. What will be the names of her attacks he'll have? Like what if he has Red Hawk with explosive armament hockey? I think that would be pretty cool. The interesting thing to note for me was that while they were fighting, the lackeys of Kaido couldn't come nowhere near them. And they pretty much just said, duke it out. Also, Yamato mentions that Luffy reminds him of him. I was always curious about who him was, but we'll find this out later in the chapter. But it was shocking to me because I did leave some questions on who I thought him were to be. The explosion scene where Luffy punches Yamato, that was expected, but I was actually glad to see more hockey progression coming from Luffy, especially in one of these areas. Hopefully we get to see more Shushiko hockey progression as well, but we'll move on from there. What's interesting there, because once page 1 finally appears, both parties are gone. To me that was odd, but it gets revealed later in the chapter why they disappeared. The next part of the issue is where we see the initiative of Orochi. I must hand it to Oda. For most of his villains, they clearly lack initiative regarding Luffy. Like they just see him as some scrub and he's done. But Orochi's like, nope. Any chance I get, I'm just going to take him down. They're going to the people against me. They're going to catch this L. It is what it is. Because too often we've seen villains like Big Mom, Doflamingo, and others, even Kaido recently, just get complacent. But Orochi said, hell no, we gotta grab the bull by the horns, we gotta grab life by the balls, and let's get this thing done. So he gives a speech where Momonosuke's all beat up still, crucified. And he basically tells everything that Kanjuro told him earlier. The optics of this, to me, looks great. Because we now know the Beast Pirates needed a morale boost. Because you see the audience, they're like, yeah! Due to the chaos earlier of Luffy and the gang just spanking them around. What was cool during the speech is how the rest of the infiltration forces, like Robin and Jinbei, they're in the crowd and they are doing an expert job at blending in. While in the back of their minds, they're like, I just can't see this happening to this guy. This is painful. It's like they want to do something, but they're like, we just got to gather our forces. Once everything's all said and done, we'll get to it. Initially, I was hoping for Frankie to be with Robin instead of Jinbei. But now, seeing how those two interact in the crowd, it's a much better fit. Because Jinbei could blend in seamlessly. He could be like some advanced gifter. Frankie clearly looks... Okay, Frankie, who the hell are you? They'll just probably look at him weird. And also, I thought it was great because you now get to see more character dynamics with Jinbei on a team, who he naturally gets along with, and so forth. What I thought also was great was that no one notices that they're even opposing enemies. let's look at earlier where it was Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp's kid. They pretty much screwed that up once because they just got into their emotions. And also looking at the pained reactions they had, I thought was great because you know they want to do something, but like I said before, they just have to fall back and just chill because they know they're in enemy territory, and you got to be a bit more strategic. Next scenes we see where Law and the rest of the Scabbards are making it to the other side of Onigashima for the raid. I thought this was great and interesting even because during his room technique, we see Law in a similar get-up to the other major characters like Luffy and the other emperors. He has his little coat draped over his shoulders, so I thought that was great because it now, at least to me as a reader, signifies that not only Law is getting more hang time, but he should be deserved to be treated in that class. So I think that's great. And I think when they finally met Marco, Nekomamushi, and Izo, I thought that was fun because we finally get to see two of the Minks come back. Well, the two Minks back together. We get to see we get to see Izzo and Okiku reunite. I thought that was great because they are brothers after all, so it is what it is. And what's interesting to me to note is that Marco mentions he sees a shadow coming overhead. He's like, I'm going to check that out, which is good because, again, initiative. We get to see threats in the far distance. I'm going to end this now as opposed to it be spilling out of control. Another thing I've noticed is that Nekomamushi had this weird prosthetic thing on his stump of his arm. So that lets me wonder, will Inarashi get something for his leg? Because we all know Jack did some work on them and they lost limbs. So hopefully that happens. I'll be very grateful if it does. But if it doesn't, it'll probably be some Deus Ex, whatever reason why. Who cares? But hopefully it does happen. Just holding out hope. But like again, going back to Marco, I think the interesting thing to note is that he said he saw a shadow. Could it be that he sees Peril's Peril coming or some remnant of Kaido's crew? Who knows? But I'm glad that he's actually going to check it out and, protect the guys. Now, after all this is done, it jumps back to the execution and we see that Kaido was annoyed with Bao Huang and he decides to go to the execution himself with his all-stars and talks about the Onigashima initiative. I'm curious to see what does he mean. Obviously, it's going to have something to do with the alliance, but also the news that they've received from Kanjuro. Now, I also like how Orochi has his epic resting bitch face. He just looks at him like, I told you not to get complacent. And at the same time, he was also pissed that, yo, you're stealing my thunder, man. I'm supposed to execute this dude and we got an agreement, bro. So I love that. Because it shows that even though they're getting along rather well, there are moments where Orochi clearly is the brains and Kaido could just be pure brawn. Because, let's face it, he should have killed Luffy during their first encounter. He just left him alive because he was impressed by his spirit. That's it. That's a big mistake, but let's move forward. The final scene of the chapter, that, I'm not going to lie, took me by surprise. Because it was the conversation that we all wanted between Yuffie and Yamato. This was interesting because we now see why Luffy made that explosion in the ground. Because he wanted the front to talk. This is good because to me, we get to see Luffy uses his wits more and more during these moments and not just doing wild, reckless shit all the time. And I think now we get to also see, again, more character progression from Luffy in this regard. So I think that's going to be amazing going forward. Hopefully Oda really fleshes this out. Because, let's be honest, Luffy has changed tremendously from the beginning of One Piece, where he just wouldn't even consider this, to now, okay, I have to be a bit more pragmatic. I'm in Emperor's territory. I got to be more effective as a leader. So I think this was good. Another thing I've noticed was the conversation Yamato had with Luffy. Now we know why Kaido hates his own child. Yamato is just a fan, is just a stan of Odin. And this also, again, ties back to what Odin told Kaido before he got murdered. He basically like, look, they're going to look up to me, and I'm going to be the best. No matter what you do, I'm a legend. You suck. If I was Kaido, I would definitely hold a grudge against Momonosuke and all of his retainers, because it's like, even though I killed you, I destroyed everything you have, you're still beating me. Because my own child wants to be just like you. And what's interesting to me is that how Kaido and Orochi had no idea Odin's had his logbook. And what's also interesting is that they don't know it even exists. So this is curious to me on how did Yamato get the book, but that's hopefully gets explained later on. But what's interesting though is the gender reveal. Surprise, surprise, Yamato's a woman. That took me off guard. I didn't expect that. I expected just some Odin-esque dude saying, all right, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Which probably ties into Ulti's remark saying that wasn't Thunder Bagua, it was Thunder Saiga or something. Basically not 8 trigrams, just 4. You can tell that this means a lot of interesting things for the series now. Because if it was a son, at least in my opinion, there's definitely going to be the more rebellious streak. Because by nature, a lot of guys do rebel against their families quite easily. Now it's a daughter. This is even worse. Because I initially assumed that the daughter, I mean not the daughter, but if Yamato was a man, that Kaido would just marry him off to, let's say, Smoothie or someone else, just to assure the alliance between Big Mom and Kaido. But now it's a daughter. What if, and I'm going to say this now just for laughs, to spite her father, she mentions to him that she's going to marry Luffy after this shit's over, and there's no arranged marriage between Big Mom and her children, and Kaido gets even more flustered at this, because now it's the ultimate middle finger. You look up to my worst enemy as opposed to me, your father. You want to hook up with someone I hate who destroyed my smile operation. And you're telling me this in front of everyone? Yo, that's the biggest middle finger. And this is, again, this ties into how what Odin said to Kaido during the Legendary Hour. And how influential Odin still is, because he's been long dead. And people are like, yeah, I'm going to do all this just for a guy who died in a boiling pot of oil. I think that's amazing. Now I want to see what happens after it comes off break, because now I'm curious. Also, I've noticed that Yamato mentions to Luffy, you remind me of Ace. So I wonder, what was Ace Adventures in Wano like? And my other question is, why didn't Whitebeard know of all this? Because it wouldn't make sense that Whitebeard didn't know that Odin died. Because again, if Ace was on Wano, why didn't he tell Whitebeard? Unless this was before he joins the Whitebeard Pirates or something like that. I can't remember, so I'll be honest on that one. But even so, it's just weird. Or unless that Whitebeard did find out, but probably knew who Kaido was as a person and thought more pragmatically, saying, well, I was once his teammate, because they were on the Rocks Pirates. Even though they didn't like each other, I guess it was more like, let's just keep the peace. Some things you just don't avenge. But he had to know, because there's just no way that he couldn't know. I just can't buy it. But anyways, that's really all I have for this video. And I mean, it sucks One Piece is on break next week, but hey, who knows? Hopefully we'll get a new chapter soon, but they're on break. Anyways, tell me what you think of this video in the comment section below. Please like, share, subscribe. Tell others about this. I'll keep the discussion going. Also, my next video about this will be based on the similarities of Guts and Goblin Slayer. Trust me, I've done my research on this. It's just for discussion as well. That should be finished within the next few days. Anyways, again, please write down what's your thoughts of this current chapter, and like always, cheers.